Results matter. So let's talk about how to get results as the standard bearer today on Equal Matters. What is happening? It's your boy, the ROB, Rob Hunter, hanging out with you. What's happening with you? So I work with a lot of small business owners, have a lot of conversations with leaders, and right now, the biggest struggle is getting results. Because the old ways of doing business just don't work anymore. What you did last year no longer works. What you did 3 years ago no longer works. So I want to talk about how do you get results. But I want to back up first, because if we think about what has changed in the world, this just gives us a nice setup to understand the realm in which we're playing right now and how to combat that, how to work with it. Because I think big things have changed. I think because prices are so high, it leads to a lot of uncertainty about how we buy things, why we buy things, uncertainty about the future of the economy. So we hunker down a little bit. The money that we've borrowed is more expensive because high interest rates are going away and have been away for a while. Home ownership is a perfect example of that. Homes are not moving quite as fast because if you bought a house with a 2% interest rate, it's hard to trade that off for a 6.5% interest rate. So there's some uncertainty in the housing market, which bleeds into other things. There's uncertainty about retirement, how much money you might need. You understand this, right? It's not groundbreaking to say these things, but if you pay attention to the news, it just adds to that uncertainty, because that's what they reinforce. Remember, division is the biggest economy in the world. And I think at the expense of all of this, we have challenges with prices. We have uncertainty. We also have a lack of trust. And we come by the lack of trust, honestly. It has just been a lot. You know, if you pay attention to the news for a decade, if you pay attention to the news for 20 plus years like I did, it has been an era of uncertainty. And we could talk about all those different reasons, but the point of this is not to bring it down. The point of this is to lead our way through it, because this is what seems to happen to people. And I love this quote from Voltaire. I brought it up before on Equal Matters, so I'm going to repeat it. His quote, Voltaire, the French philosopher, "History does not repeat itself, man does." And if you look at history and you study how humans have acted and behaved throughout different times of economic ups and downs, high prices, depressions, recessions, there's a retreat mentality. There's a hunker down mentality. Companies stop spending as much on marketing. Companies lay people off, right? Instead of trying to expand and trying to innovate, trying to find new ways of doing business, we just hunker down and wait. That's one of those areas where man repeats himself, not history. So that's why this is the greatest opportunity we've had as both leaders and business owners in the last 10 years. Because everyone is retreating. Everyone is hunkering down. And that means that we don't want to fit in. Because standard bearers do not fit in. Standard bearers are bold, visible, and out front. Standard bearers are not here to be number one in a broken industry. They're here to redefine their industries. Matter of fact, on Friday, a couple days from now, you're going to hear a podcast from a doctor who thinks completely differently about your health and what is health and how health really is everything in your life and how alive you feel. That's going to be coming on Friday, because Dr. Don DeLilly is a standard bearer here to redefine the medical industry. So I want to get back to results. How do you get results when prices are high, when uncertainty is contagious, and when there's a lack of trust? Well, you become the person you trust. It seems like the obvious answer, right? Well, how do you become the person you trust? I'm going to bring in my guy, Dave Riccio, the owner of Tri-City Transmission and Auto Repair. Now, Dave came to me at the end of last year, and he said, Rob, business has changed. It's harder to get people in the door than it was 2 years ago. The marketing efforts that I'm putting out there, that I've been using for years, aren't working quite as well. In fact, they're not really working well at all. And these are true and tried things. These are marketing ideas that have been around for a very long time. So in Dave's case, he owns an auto shop in Tempe, so he sends out a mailer to let people in the area know about Tri-City Transmission. So that's one way he does outreach. He has other marketing things that he does as well. But when he came to me, he says, I really want to grow my YouTube page, my podcast on my YouTube page, because I want people to get to know us. And that's exactly the way to stand out. So we'll give you an example of what Dave has been working on with his team, and Dave and I have been working on with his team. There's a particular defect with a Ford F-150 transmission. In Dave's shop, Tri-City Transmission and Auto Repair is the oldest transmission shop in Arizona. So they have the expertise. And what they found in this particular model, I think it's F-150 models 2017 to 2021, have this transmission called the 10R80. So Dave and his head technician, John, did a podcast about the 10R80 in this particular defect. And how if you take your F-150 to most places, they're going to want to replace the entire transmission, which might cost you 10 to 12 grand. Well, what Dave and his team has found is that you don't have to replace the entire thing. You have to take it apart and fix it, and it saves people thousands of dollars. So because this is a continuous problem with this F-150 transmission, the video did really well. Thousands and thousands of views. So when Dave and I were talking, doing our work, we doubled down on this because the formula for the standard bearer is really simple. The formula for the standard bearer to have success is to understand what your standards are. But not only that, you have to let other people understand what your standards are too. They have to see you, experience you, and hear you. But that experience is really how people make decisions in uncertain times when prices are high. We want someone who is going to convey to us that it's okay to spend our money. And Dave's a perfect example of this because of the way he does business, because he has high standards. We'll get into that here in a minute. Other than high standards, you have to have a theme. Something that is on repeat. Just like in a movie, it has a theme. Just like in a book, it has a theme. Where you study the themes of transformation or whatever when it comes to a movie. And to go back to this particular transmission part in the F-150, you have to be consistent enough in how you broadcast. So Dave and I and his team are using YouTube and podcasting as our main strategy. For you, that might be the strategy, but it might be writing. It might be website updates. It could look like anything, but it's really based on what you love to create. So in the work that Dave and I have done, we start by really getting clear on the standards. We identify our theme, which is our through line. And then we start to build our consistency, because you have to think about things as a standard bearer. You got to understand the first 3 to 6 months are trial and error. It's getting a routine going, getting a system going, trying to tap into something that you want to do naturally. And again, maybe that's writing, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's a YouTube show. And the results that we're seeing with Dave is that this approach works tremendously well because you're building trust, because people can experience you. I believe marketing has completely changed in the last 5 years. I believe marketing is so ubiquitous, it is like Talladega Nights. If you've not seen Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby, there was a point in the movie where Will Ferrell's character, as a NASCAR driver, has every inch of his car covered in advertisements. They even have in the middle of the movie an advertisement for Applebee's. It is hilarious. But on Will Ferrell's car, it's on the windshield. Fig Newtons. I do love a Fig Newton, he says, something like that. But this is really dangerous behind the wheel. Or Minority Report. Have you seen that movie? Minority Report features Tom Cruise. And at one point, he's walking, and his eyes are triggering these ads. And they're trying to sell him something at every corner he goes. That's the world we live in. So that bombardment is not as effective as it used to be. And marketing techniques have been around now for 100 years. based on propaganda. Propaganda is designed to manipulate you. But I think the more we see ads, the more we as a collective understand what's happening here. And because we understand, because we've been exposed to millions of ads, it's harder to break through. So in order to break through, you have to become bingeable. You have to let people experience you. So back to Dave, the Ford F-150, the 10R80 transmission. We doubled down and did another video about why Ford doesn't recall it. And it's obviously about money. That video did really well. Then what Dave and his team did is they put a camera in front of Ken. Ken is their technician who fixes or repairs the transmissions. So he took apart the 10R80 transmission that you find in the F-150s. And he showed you what the problem is. How there's a particular part that grinds on the others because the aluminum's a little too sharp. Whatever the case may be. That video has over 100,000 views. And guess what happened here? Because we discovered a wrinkle. Dave at Tri-City, myself, his team, discovered a wrinkle and continued to feed that wrinkle. And all of a sudden, within 3 weeks, there are 9 F-150s at Tri-City Transmission and Auto Repair to be fixed. So think about this. What's changed? If we went back 5 years, Dave might put a mailer out about the 10R80 and send it around within 20 miles of the shop. And maybe there's a chance that a homeowner who gets this mailer has a problem with their F-150. And it may have worked 5 years ago. But what works now is showcasing your expertise as the standard bearer, combined with your standards. And Dave's standard is heart-centered service, which you can see and experience in the videos that he records, in the posts that he puts up. So now, in this time of uncertainty and high prices, you have a problem with your F-150, you get to see the expert. You get to work with the experts, and you know that you can trust Dave and John and Ken to fix your car and do it in a way that's going to save you money versus replacing the entire transmission. So the point in all of this is how you get results in these uncertain times. You put yourself out there more. I like to use the term broadcast because I was a radio broadcaster for 27 years. And as a radio broadcaster, we are consistent. We are coming at you every single day from 4 to 7 p.m. So we have to be consistent, on theme. We got to tell you our standards. We got to help you experience our standards. And then you can build an audience. Because essentially every small business, every big company, every leader has to operate like a media company now. Because also what has changed in the last decade or so, we're bingers. We like to experience 2 or 3 or 4 episodes at once. So like Dave, if we find this wrinkle and we say, okay, we're going to exploit this wrinkle, I want to be able to watch 3 or 4 videos of you talking about the 10R80. Because once I watch you, Dave, Ken, John talk about the 10R80, I know that you're the expert. And when I'm deciding on spending my money, I want to go with people I trust. Another example that I'll use is an example from my own life. And this is really how I knew that I was buying things based on standards. Because I'd gone through several experiences just like you that were very lackluster. You would look at the website and you would say, oh, they have all these values, customer service, quality work. And then I call these people over to my house and it starts off well. Roofing company. I had a roofing problem. And it was just on one part of my roof. So this kid comes over, he does the sales process, and honestly, the sales process was great. It matched up with the company values, which I was very impressed with because sales processes usually suck. This one did not. It just started to suck everywhere after that. So much so that after the roof repair, I called the vice president of the company to tell him what happened. And he basically blew me off. That was one experience. I had an AC company experience that bills themselves as the best, the experts, missed a leak on my system. Another company came over and found it because they had a more experienced tech. We had to get a new AC unit. We bought it from them, not the original company, the one with the stated values on the website. And you could add in dozens of restaurants and you've gone in, which, at least for me, haven't yielded great results in terms of, wow, I felt like a valued guest. So this uncertainty and high prices lowers the standards, lowers service. But you're here to raise it. I'm here to raise it because that is how we make the world a better place. A little bit, little bit, little bit at a time. That you can bring your car to an auto shop that they know is going to give you the honest answer. That there's got to be a roofing company that dials in their communication and makes you feel valued, same as restaurants. That's the difference of being a standard bearer. But you can't do it in silence. You can't just put your standards on the wall and hope people see it. That's not how we operate anymore. We need information. We need it quickly. We need to binge it, which is why I do what I do. I help the best, those that are here to redefine their industries because they're not satisfied with the standards. I help people experience you by creating, enhancing your media channel so that you get results like Dave. Because this is how you get results. I want to go back to that. What are your high standards? What is the theme of your media channel? What is the theme of your business? Dave and I have one. That's between him and I, though, so I won't share that with you. And then being consistent, playing around, having fun, and finding wrinkles. Wrinkles that let the F-150 owners know Tri-City Transmission's where you need to bring your car. Or that you're the realtor to trust. Or that you are the leader inside your company that lives by those standards. And maybe as a leader, we'll just deviate here for a second because it's a different approach potentially than a business owner. Business owner, media channel, critical to your growth. In fact, I would say it's one of the only things that's going to help you grow in 2026 and 2027 and 2028. Having a media channel presence. So a leader, that might look a little bit different. It's how you communicate with your employees. And that could be via email, that could be in meetings, but this is the same idea. The numbers on trust inside of companies is horrendous. 20% or below of employees trust their C-suite leaders and their CEO. The good news is it's slightly above Congress, which hovers around 8 to 10% of people in America trust the United States Congress. So if you're in a leadership position, you're going to be spinning things and trying to hide the uncertainty, but people will appreciate it if you just keep it real with them. Every leader that I've worked with that kept it real with me, which I would say is less than half, but those leaders that kept it real with me, I appreciated so much more. I got way much more out of them to help me be better. So the other example I'm going to give you in closing as to how this works in my own life, I mentioned them before. Venegas Greenscape. So this was a company I tested. A kid named Christian drove my wife and I home from the airport one time. And I had a bunch of weeds in the yard. I made a comment about the weeds. So Christian mentioned that he does landscaping. So I call him up, have him come over. And it's him and his dad, which I love right away. Father and son, landscaping, so cool. The job they did was so far above and beyond. My yard looked terrible with all those weeds. Within 2 hours, all the weeds were gone. It wasn't just that. It was the attention to the little details. It was the way that he took the blower out and cleaned the yard. But not just in a simple way. Even the backyard, the rocky parts, the jagged parts. It's starting to rain a little bit here in Flagstaff, so if you hear me shuffling around, moving a table, that's exactly what I'm doing. Broadcasting in Flagstaff, amongst the trees, standard bearers themselves. So that attention to detail, Christian and his dad, Reuben, I could see their values. I could experience their values. More importantly, their standards, as in they have high standards. They don't cut corners. They make the yard look as good as it possibly can. So they've become my landscapers now and for the long term because I experienced it. And that's what people who are buying are looking for, an experience with you, to be able to binge you, to see your expertise, to experience your heart-centered values. So this is the breakthrough that we're having in these difficult times, in these weird economic times, with high prices and uncertainty. Be the standard bearer. And if this is something that's interesting to you, if you are ready to enhance your broadcast channel to get the same results that Dave is getting, I invite you to reach out to me. Let's have a conversation about a plan, a strategy, and an execution, what that might look like. Because it is so much fun to do. You're going to have a blast doing it, and you're going to get those results. But the point is, you know the formula, you know what to do. So if you don't want to hit me up, I encourage you to take this formula and play around with it. My name is Rob Hunter, a.k.a. your boy, the ROB. Don't forget, a couple of days from now, Friday, you're going to hear from Dr. Don DeLily, who is redefining health, redefining how we look at medical care and how she ties it into your whole life is your health. That'll be right here on Equal Matters. Stay tuned. Cheers.